Throughout this year, Emmet and I have been going through the last 2 volumes of Jack Kirby's 1970s work on Captain America and the Falcon. This time, we wrap that up with Captain America Annual number 4 from 1977, featuring the unusual matchup between Cap and Magneto. We'll also talk a bit about our overall experience reading Kirby's Cap stories from the 70s. First, as always, I'd like to thank our patrons for helping to keep the show going. You can pitch in by pledging at least $2 a month at patreon.com/deconcomics. This is Tim.
This is Emmet.
And this is Deconstructing Comics. Welcome to Deconstructing Comics. This is Tim in Tokyo with Emmet in country Victoria, Australia. Hello.
Hello, Tim. Happy holidays.
Yeah, so this is coming out on the final day of 2025, and which I did that on purpose because I wanted to. It lines up nicely because we started out this year talking about the bicentennial battles, the second volume of Kirby's Captain America work from the 70s, and this time we're finishing up the third and final volume of that, the Swine. What a name. Let's read The Swine. So we're going to talk about this last annual number 4 from 1977, and then kind of wrap it up and just kind of review our thoughts on the overall experience of reading these 50-year-old comics. The most surprising thing to me about this annual was that the villain was Magneto. And you don't often see Cap versus Magneto.
No.
Apparently they had faced off in an Avengers issue, which makes sense. But yeah, one-on-one.
There's more to it than that. It's also the provenance of Jack Kirby himself, because Jack Kirby...
Yeah, who was the first person to draw Magneto. Yeah, right.
Yeah, so the X-Men, the Uncanny X-Men... the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, Magneto, that's all Jack Kirby. That's his contribution. Mm-hmm. So I almost like how this is him sort of putting his little final stamp on, well, I presided over all of these things. Captain America with Joe Simon and X-Men with Stan Lee. So this is my, this is my career here in this annual.
Yeah.
But the cover has the caption, at the mercy of Magneto and his all-new brotherhood of evil mutants. Folks, you won't see most of these characters again.
Well, yeah.
Except for one who becomes quite notable. He's become quite notable recently. But yes.
Well, yeah, I mean, I looked into that because I didn't recall ever seeing these characters before. And we'll get to their names as they appear one by one in the comic. But one of them is a snake-like guy named Slither. And looking at his listing on fandom.com, so it talks about this story. And then it says that these 5 mutants were abandoned by Magneto after this story and then hired by the Mandrill and redubbed as the Mutant Force. It doesn't say what issue this was in, but it goes into some stuff that apparently happened in the Defenders title, which is kind of where you would expect it, because that kind of became a second and third stringers book.
Yes, and it became subconsciously goofy as well. It turned into a sort of, we're not the top dogs, and we know it.
So apparently a lot happened there, and then it mentions Slither turning up in House of M, which was a mere 20 years ago, which seems more recent than that. But so it's not like they disappeared in the 20th century. But yeah, they're not well-known characters, I don't think.
Slither even has a strong resemblance to a He-Man villain character, too. Not to mention the man with the lobster hands. But yes, and House of M was an alternate world. So it's a second, so the events of this timeline haven't happened in House of M. I thought the ending to this annual, as regards these new evil mutants, was pretty definitive. And because I know what happened to the other character I'm alluding to before, who has become actually somewhat known recently, what happens to him? He gets sent a different way. He gets sent down a chute. So I was like, okay,
right.
that explains why I've met him since. These are the characters. I guess they're dead. But you're telling me no. There's
right. Well, it wouldn't be the first time that a character was thought dead and then reappeared. Well, we were just talking about that in the last regular issue. Who was the guy, the villain who appeared dead, and then I looked it up, and he came back once and then died again.
He got killed again in the whole comic. Yeah. So
oh no, they killed Kenny.
Yes, very much so. Very much so. They killed him the same way. My goodness.
Yeah.
But yes, no. This is. I think they are a sorry bunch in terms of, one of them is called Lifter, and he lifts. That's what he brings to the table. So you can kind of also see this as a demarcator in terms of the original Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. One had look powers, Scarlet Witch. One could run really fast, Quicksilver. One was a Toad. So, we weren't exactly batting 1,000 there either, but there was some character to them. With these guys, they're pretty anonymous. They're pretty almost intentionally disposable.
And we've got one named Shocker. Like, hey, wait a minute. There's a Spider-Man villain by the same name who appeared in the '60s first, and still appears now. So, but no editor said, "Wait a minute, Jack, we've already got a Shocker."
But you see, when Magneto and his various teams or his various plots came under the stewardship of Chris Claremont, suddenly there was a lot more, gentleman. I want to say more respect paid to him as a character. He's not just a conniving villain, mad, evil villain. He's got a poetry to him. He's got the sense of dignity, and his followers became tortured individuals. Sometimes they are opportunists, but sometimes they are terrorists because, well, they've been the victims of oppression and they're fighting back. So Chris Claremont took these characters in a different direction. Booth, Kirby, they're very much villains, and somewhat monstrous villains at that. And that's his 2 cents on them.
You know what's kind of amazing is in 20 years we've never talked about a Chris Claremont book on the show. I don't think we've ever talked about a single issue that he wrote. So we got to correct that in the new year, I think.
Oh my! That
I'm not sure how that happened, but
that's a whole other podcast.
Yeah, if you really wanted to dig in, you could do just a podcast, like a weekly or daily podcast about all the comics issues written by Chris Claremont. But at least maybe we should talk about a particular arc. I don't know, maybe some of the fondly remembered ones from the late 70s.
Well, I mean, this annual is titled The Mutant Massacre.
Which Great Mutant Massacre.
The Great Mutant Massacre, which in X-Men lore, under Chris Claremont, is a very different event. And a significant event that sort of haunts the series.
Yeah, the one in the future with the Sentinels? No,
it's in the present day. It's a deliberate cull of the Morlocks who live beneath New York.
Oh, okay.
That Mr. Sinister, it turns out, orchestrates.
Okay, that was kind of after I dropped off, I think. But.
Yes, and a number of characters were involved and were directly impacted by it, both those who survived and those who participated, those who were actually hired to do it. And it turns out to be this huge event that has all sorts of storytelling offshoots. And it's so interesting that this story is called The Great Mutant Massacre, and I would consider this largely a forgotten story. I remember Chris Sims featured it in one of his Comics Alliance pieces on the Great Captain America stories. He threw this one in as a lark,
Huh.
But I wouldn't have thought this is a particularly remembered
No.
story. But the title has a completely different significance.
Yeah. Well, and there aren't that many mutants who die in this issue either. It's hardly doesn't quite qualify as a massacre, I don't think.
This is where I'm saying the meaning's been changed because people brought the characters back. They explicitly died. There's text to indicate they died.
Oh, well,
in the comic.
I suppose so. Yeah. I see what you're saying.
But again, if you don't see a body, no death.
Right. Yeah, it's the same on soap operas. Nobody could have survived that explosion, and then 5 years later, he's back. But after he's failed at some other acting jobs. But anyway. Okay, so typical Kirby, this starts out like in the middle of a fight between Cap and Magneto. And we find out that they both saw a want ad in some newspaper that said unique and talented mutant seeks home environment and care from concerned and sensitive persons or agencies equipped to help. And they both showed up, I guess, wanting to be the guardian of this mutant. And since it's Marvel, you got to have a fight even if there's no reason. And even as they're both saying, "I don't want to fight you."
Yeah, let's trash this poor dude's apartment.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, Magneto is obviously picking up anything that's metal and making it fly around the room, and Cap has got his shield and he's punching things.
Okay, well, right there. I mean, unless someone's going to write into the show and explain, well, actually, Captain America's shield isn't able to be magnetized or some nonsense like that. I would have assumed
vibranium.
Yeah, exactly right. This is magical qualities, blah blah blah. I would have assumed in the event of Magneto and Captain America having a fisticuff, Magneto would just go, "All right, you," and just swing him a mile away because he's holding onto his shield. He's like, "All right, bye," and just send him away. It's not quite as uneven as Magneto fighting Iron Man, but it's out there.
Yeah. So they talk for a while, and then the guy who placed the ad shows up, Joe Keegan, and he says, "Wow, you super jocks would rather fight than talk," and he's kicking around the debris that's all over the floor. And yeah, he says it's not a gag. I really am looking for somebody to take care of this mutant, but they're wondering what the mutant looks like, and he shows them this tiny guy inside like his watch. Really little tiny guy, and they're of course Cap and Magneto are both quite surprised. And he's called Mr. One. And why is he called Mr. One? Because there's also a Mr. Two, as we'll find out in a few more panels.
This is a brief interlude. Our little conversation with Jack here, Joe Keegan. It's a really brief. It's one of my favorite passages in the comic.
Oh,
just the ordinariness of Joe, and he's kind of a Harry Dean Stanton type. He's just this sort of he looks like he's a bit rough. He's been around the block a couple of times.
Yeah.
Maybe life's not been particularly easy on him.
Got a cigarette.
He has a talent for understatement. Because he mentions, I found him with a friend. And then we later find out who the friend is. And he comes home. These two guys in costumes have ruined his apartment. And he's like, "Oh, wow. You super jocks would rather fight than talk." There's this sort of deadpan quality to him. I love him. I think he's a great character. And then he's out of the comic after this. We don't meet him again. Right. But he is a classic Kirby type. If we're going to reflect on what we've been talking about these last couple of episodes with Captain America and Jack Kirby. But there is something to, and I keep banging on about this, but these ordinary men who are completely nonplussed by the extraordinary foisted on them. You know, when they encounter super gods or monsters or whatever, all right, yeah, well, what you gonna do? You know, like we had a somewhat similar character in the Space Vampire annual as well, although he was a little more energetic, but there was also a sort of blasé acceptance of the situation. It's like, all right, well, I saw you on the television, so I rang you up and asked you to come help because I guess you know how to do this kind of thing. I love this stuff. It's so we're missing it. We're missing the idea of like ordinary people intersecting with these superhero narratives and just surviving and then just carrying on their way. You know, they make their contribution and then they leave the story. Instead now everyone has to be some sort of expert or a talented athlete or very important person. That's to justify their entry into the story. I love here is just he's just a guy. He would have wanted that in a paper to deal with a mutant situation. It's incredible. It's such a funny idea.
So this Mr. One, he's inside the watch, and he doesn't talk or really move, but he has mental powers. He says he doesn't talk, but he can think right at you and tell you what he wants. And it's hard to tell who's speaking here because it's all the balloon is pointing off panel, but either Cap or Magneto says why he's one of the most incredible sights I've ever seen. There are insects which are larger than he is. And then we see Cap's face. He says, and if Mr. One has the highly developed mental powers that you claim, he must be some sort of mutant. Magneto says, his size, it's perfect, just perfect for my purposes. So we'll find out what the purposes are. Although, if Magneto didn't know this, I'm not sure why he showed up. It doesn't quite make sense to me. His Magneto sense told him that this mutant was tiny.
Yeah, I mean, the very first appearance of Magneto, he and Xavier have this contest on the psychic plane where they're arguing about who gets to save mutant kind, like who gets to lead the way. And Magneto's like, I'm going to find all these mutants and I'm going to turn them into my brotherhood. And Xavier's like, well, me and my X-Men will stop you. And that's the from the jump. That's exactly the conflict. It's like, I'm going to find all these mutants. I'm going to make them liberators, you know. And then Charles Xavier says, well, I trained some teenagers to be cops. I'm going to send my child soldiers into battle against you. That's what I'm going to do. And that's the initial conflict. So there has been this established idea that he's been looking for mutants, but he here is explicitly shown to be, well, I have an idea for how I can use you. So we've moved away from the I'm looking to change the world. Now it's I'm going to use you for my many schemes.
And so Magneto uses his power to steal the watch right off the guy's arm. And he's laughing and holding the watch in his hand as we see this much larger figure behind Magneto with his hands outstretched. And on the next page, he's now like smashing Magneto's head between his hands. And the guy, what was his name again? This other character?
Joe Keery.
Of course it's Joe. Poor jerk, I should have warned him about Mr. 2. He flips out when Mr. 1 is in danger. And he clarifies that the Mr. 2 is the friend that he mentioned who was with Mr. 1 when he picked them up. He was holding Mr. 1 in his palm when I met them. And he takes the watch back from Magneto. And then Magneto is pitched by Mr. 2 through the wall and outside.
And we get the wonderful sequence on the next page of the damage done to Magneto's mask, which is incredible. I need to make an immediate correction.
Okay.
It's Joe Keegan. Joe Keery is an actor, I believe, from Stranger Things. Whole other person. The exact opposite of this character, in that he's highly stylized and very attractive, and a bit of a up and coming singer and performer, and very outspoken. Whereas this guy is this sort of homely dude in an apartment just trying to find a home for his little mutant friend. Very different person.
I see. Sidebar. I mean, I don't have Netflix, so there's a lot of stuff I'm not watching, but I got a little curious about Stranger Things, even though I'm not into horror, because I don't know if you heard about this, the radio station from Stranger Things, they're doing like this pop-up radio station on the internet through January 2nd.
And it's got all the music they're playing on the show?
They're playing, it's all these 80s songs and sometimes older ones that feel a little out of place. But, and then they've got fake ads, which I guess like tie into things that have happened on the show or will happen. And since I've never watched it, I'm thinking, well, that sounds like it's something that would connect with something on the show, but I have no idea what it is.
Right. Yeah, there's one of the characters played by the actor I just mentioned, and Maya Hawke, who is Uma Thurman and Ethan Hawke's daughter. They run a radio station in the latest series, and all the music they choose is coded messaging to the other members of the Stranger Things cast.
I see.
It's passing on secret messages to the radio station. That's the significance of the radio station.
And I know Running Up That Hill was one of those songs because it got to be a much bigger hit than it was in '85 in the States anyway. And I as I've listened to the pop-up station, I've heard Running Up That Hill a couple times. Like, well, of course, this song. Well, maybe that's why those older songs showed up there, because maybe they were songs that were played as code on the show.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's
that would explain why these non-80s songs popped up.
Exactly. It's not so much that these kids have the most amazing taste. Although it is funny that in the very first episode of Stranger Things, we learned that two of the characters' brothers were exchanging tapes of like The Clash. Yeah, and I was going, what kid in the boonies was listening to The Clash? Are you kidding me? I got very annoyed about that. Like, these kids had immaculate taste, and we're getting all the right memorable stuff from that year. They're into John Carpenter movies, and they're listening to The Clash. And I'm like, get stuffed. No one went to see The Thing by John Carpenter. No one did. We know because it made no money.
The Clash had one hit in America, but anyway.
And then they did their difficult second album, which had some politics in it, and all of a sudden no one liked them. So
anyway, Magneto's helmet is a mess, and he's shaking his fist. I'll be back for Mr. One. He is destined for work in the service of Homo Superior. And so Magneto gets in his hidden Magna craft and speeds out of sight, it says. And Cap stays behind, and he's talking with Joe. He says, "It seems that I've inherited the job of straightening out the situation. I advise you to accept my help." And Joe says, "You've got Joe Keegan's vote." What? Why do people use their own name in the third person like that?
I need to do that more. I need to keep saying my own name.
Yeah, well, I guess we've talked about it before, and Tim Young thinks this is a good comic.
We need to do this more.
I don't know. I suppose it's so that you know the character's name, but we were introduced to him just a few pages ago with his full name, so I'm not sure there was any need for him to say his name again. And of course, people address other people by, friends by their full name too. So Joe hands him the watch and hands over Misters 1 and 2 to Cap. And a week later, we see that Cap has taken them to S.H.I.E.L.D. And so S.H.I.E.L.D.'s taking care of them, but they're treating them a little bit too much like lab rats, and not, intelligent beings. They're feeling a little bit imprisoned here.
Yeah, and there's a line later on, I didn't catch if it's introduced earlier. There's a line later on where Cap says, "Oh, I wish I could have caught Xavier a week ago, but he didn't answer my call," or he didn't.
He wished that he could go up against Magneto with the X-Men, but I guess they were busy that week.
Sure, which makes no sense, but never mind. We tend to handwave these things, but I did wonder if somebody had a word to say, well, if you were going to find a safe place for Mr. One, it would be at Xavier's. That would be the safe place. That's where you would send them. You wouldn't send them to a shield lab. That's actually a very inhumane thing to do.
Yeah.
But I wondered if somebody had said something, because that's my thought too. I was like, well, I wouldn't send them there. That seems like a bad idea.
And so we see, they've got Mr. One in some kind of contraption, the environmental system you built for Mr. One. It seems to supply everything: sunlight, fresh air, proper nutrition, the whole schmear. I guess Steve is Jewish. But and we see Mr. One like lying on this cushion within the machine with a bunch of tubes coming out of the cushion. And they can talk to him using this microphone, and Mr. One communicates with them by, mentally, and his words appear on this readout screen. I don't want visitors. I need recreation. I want to get out of here, he says.
Yeah, isn't this what Elon Musk is now telling us, that he can put a chip in your brain and people can now type using their thoughts? Like, that's the new thing. So Elon Musk is just caught up to Jack Kirby.
Right. And Mr. Two is in the next room, pounding on the wall, saying, "You can't keep me here forever. I want to get out. I want to get out." But the shield guy says this is something new. He's never done this before. This, I guess, yelling and pounding, and Cap says, "Doc, I believe you've forgotten that our friends are not lab animals. They probably need a change of surroundings." Actually, I should say Steve says that, because he's dressed as Steve, not Cap. But and then Mr. Two breaks the window, the wall of the box that he's in, just with his fist.
It's a very literal sound effect. Crash.
And then an electric unit within the giant's chamber discharges its power, and we see him getting zapped and knocked out. So what they're finding here is, the shield guy says, "It's strange, it's always the same. Mr. One feels the frustration and Mr. Two reacts." Steve says, "Two people expressing a single thought. Yes, you hit upon the most interesting facet of these subjects. I must initiate a more intense study." "Hold it, Doc, you're doing it again. I must remind you that they're more than mere subjects." Steve is saying, they both trust Captain America, so kind of let me handle it.
We need to pause this panel. Like, the expression on Cap's face is incredible. it's giving, I guess it's up to me again. Like, he's rubbing like his face.
Heavy eyelids and
this bitch. Like, there's something very maudlin about it. I think that's quite funny.
So then we jump to Magneto, who is pounding the table saying, "Blast Captain America, blast the meddling fool." And he's holding this kind of beetle-shaped thing, which is a miniature spaceship. If not for his interference, I'd have had that microbe mutant crawling into this little circular entrance of this miniature spaceship. He would ferret out its treasures for me. And then one of his new Brotherhood peepers comes in. He's this bald guy with huge eyes.
Yes. Now, Peeper is who I was referring to. Peeper has come back in a big way. Peeper has been in the new Krakoa era of X-Men.
Okay.
Like, and he actually has a very important function. Like he's been featured in the X-Men Red book, where he had a relationship to the colony on Mars. And he lives on a satellite, and I'm pretty sure Al Ewing's used him. I think Kieran Gillen used him as well. He might have been involved with Sword. Like there's been a couple of things he's done, and part of the joke, it feels to me, is that Peeper had this reputation of being a stupid character. You know, people are like, "Oh, he's this ridiculous-looking character," and contemporary writers have gone out of their way to say, actually, he's very useful in what he can do. He has this really interesting power set. He's got incredible vision, and yes, if he focuses his vision to a point, he can actually generate energy through his eyes as well. So it's like you got some elements of Cyclops there. But yeah, he's just this really kooky looking character, and contemporary writers seem a bit defensive of him because he probably featured in, like, God knows, half a dozen comic book resources articles back in the early 2000s. Ridiculous comic characters that you've forgotten about. You know, something like some terrible article like that. Some clickbait before we had the phrase clickbait. And no, I love that he's being recovered in recent years.
So he comes in and tells Magneto that he saw Captain America. I saw him enter a building, which I'm certain is the hiding place of that little mutant. It's only 60 miles away. I didn't miss a detail. So, and we'll see him later when he's using this vision power to spot Cap coming from a long distance away. He's got, apparently he can see around the curve of the Earth. That's a pretty good trick.
I don't know. He's got a penetrating gaze.
So Magneto calls the whole group together, and he says, "Fellow mutants, it's time once again to test our teamwork. This mission is an evangelistic one. You shall aid in gaining a new recruit."
You know, it's every now and then. Poor Jack, like his reach misses the mark. Evangelistic is a bit of a howler.
Yeah, it's not like they're trying to spread a religion. I think that's what's the word that I think he might have meant instead.
Evangelical.
Well, maybe, or
or you just say we're evangelists.
Altruistic.
I wouldn't say altruistic, because it's all, I guess,
they're trying to recruit the guy.
Cause.
So
yeah, it's what their cause. Yeah, but evangelistic just trips you as you're reading this, and it's highlighted, so you can't ignore it
in bold. And then we see Cap and Mr. 2 jogging, and Mr. 2 is much faster than Cap. Cap can't keep up with him. Until finally he catches up when Mr. 2 stops and is just enjoying nature and has a little bird sitting on his massive finger. Well, wonders never cease. That monster is a nature lover. And then suddenly they're surrounded in flame. And one of the mutants, Burner, has used his flame power to kind of surround them in fire.
Yeah, so he's pyrokinetic, but it's like the Stephen King Firestarter version, where he can start fires with his thoughts. That's, whereas the character of Pyro, who would be involved in the later Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, needed to have an open flame to actually then manipulate it. He needed to start a fire, and then he could make it grow, make it spread, create shapes. So this is a sort of psycho-pyrokinetic. I don't know. There's some complicated way of describing it, but yes, he's creating explosions and starting fires with his mind.
Mm-hmm. And even this explosion seems to be, maybe it's just an explosion of fire, not like an actual explosion of like gunpowder or something, but it throws Cap, and so that he's then wrapped up by Slither. Meanwhile, Lifter is heaving this huge boulder at Mr. 2, and Mr. 2 just like breaks it to pieces when it hits him. Bam!
Yeah, and again, we've got these characters. We're introducing their power sets. They announce what they're going to do, and then they do it.
Yeah. Very by the numbers.
This is kind of the dialogue that becomes associated with bad comic book writing. And, decades later, you'd have, your Image comic creators who would be taking these sort of Marvel concepts with the serial numbers filed off, such as, Rob Liefeld and Youngblood and all these, where you would have the characters do the same thing. They would say, my name is Ice Bucket, and I'm going to cover you in ice. And then they'd do that.
And I have 45 pouches on my belt. Yeah.
Yes, indeed. And the difference there is, I think, because people might say, well, this is just the same as Kirby. They're just doing the same thing as Kirby. But as much as his dialogue wasn't always great, I always feel like there was a political view that informed whatever that story happened to be. Or there would be a concept that would have an exciting core idea motivating the plot. And the guys who claim, we're just following the tradition of Kirby, have none of that. They have none of that. Their politics is informed by whatever they saw in the 6 o'clock news. They haven't done any of the reading. They are not curious people. And I think that's the essential distinction, that Kirby was curious. He wanted to learn. He was always trying to inform himself what's happening. And, I read a line like, "Greetings, Captain America, Slither is my name, and strangling is my game." And yeah, I'm transported to 1991. Absolutely. That's exactly the line of dialogue I'd read. But, we also have, in this issue, we have this vision of the government being turned to help protect this vulnerable creature. And they put the creature in a lab and start experimenting on him, because that's what you do. That's what the government would do. And maybe Captain America was profoundly naive to put Mr. One in that situation. So there's a narrative there that's at least informed by the real world, whereas the later Kirbyists, Kirby Light creators, they're not thinking about it. They're not thinking any further than, well, I came up with a punchy catchphrase for my villain to say. That's it. I always remember, I think it was in an issue of X-Force, one of the heroes saying to Juggernaut, "Let's make your dentist a rich man." Because he's going to punch him in the face, you see?
Yeah.
I believe there was a Fabian Nietzsche's line, to be fair, but I always think about that period. It's always these one-liners being traded back and forth.
And so Lifter and Mr. 2 are fighting, and then Shocker, not that Shocker, steps in and shocks Mr. 2 and knocks him out. Now, why does Shocker have crab claws for hands? That's the most puzzling thing about this issue.
Thank you, Tim. Exactly the same thought I had. Are crabs or lobsters?
Electricity, shocking, sure. Crab claws, exactly. It all fits together. Not.
Or does he have crab claws at all? Does he have hands, and his claws are a conductive element that allow him to touch things? Because maybe he's constantly charged or something. I don't know. We don't get a lot of time with Shocker, so we don't.
No, there's not really any explanation of these mutants. Just basically, we get their names and their powers, and that's about it. And so Lifter is ready to fix Mr. 2 permanently with his fists, but then Slither comes in, says, "Playtime's over. This place is crawling with shield men." So they get out of there, all 5 of them, and as the shield guys are shooting at them, the mutants all get in their little ship and take off. And Cap is there too. And they find Mr. 2 just sitting in the grass, seeming kind of like he's dead, but it's more like he's just absent. I mean, he's sitting up, he's not lying down, so you'd think he's alive, but his eyes have just kind of, he says, the pupils have disappeared into his head. He said, this body is momentarily unoccupied, neither alive nor dead. And so we'll find out what that means in a little bit. Coming up, more on Captain America Annual Number 4 and our overall impressions of Kirby's work on Cap in the 70s. This podcast is part of the Deconstructing Comics Network, where we're grateful to our supporters on Patreon. Patrons get exclusive extra content. Pledge $2 a month or more and get Batman 66 podcast Bat Bits, where we're just completing a 5-part discussion of writer and script editor Lorenzo Semple's Bat Notes memo, in which he laid out guidelines for writing Batman scripts. At $4 a month, you also get our monthly show Silver Age Batman, where I'm moving through the book Batman in the 50s, issue by issue, with a rotating second chair of Paul, Emmet, Patrick, or Kumar. Also at the $4 level, you can still access our past series that covered the first 50 issues of Amazing Spider-Man, Jim Starlin's work on Captain Marvel, and more. Follow our Patreon for free and get access to the first 2 episodes of both Bat Bits and Silver Age Batman. Check it out at patreon.com/deconcomics, and thanks for your support. We go back to the S.H.I.E.L.D. lab, and Magneto has trashed it and kidnapped Mr. 1, while his mutants were keeping Mr. 2 and Cap occupied. And yeah, Cap's figured it out. He says, once we've tracked this case history to its source, I think we'll uncover a genetic experiment which spawned a mutation with 2 bodies. I believe that Mr. 1 and 2 are the same person. And the scientist says, you're mad. All the dialogue is so dramatic in Kirby.
Yeah, and there's an extreme close-up.
Nobody says like, gee, that's kind of a crazy idea. No. You're mad. You're mad. Say.
Yeah. Again, why are you talking to S.H.I.E.L.D.? You should be talking to Xavier. You should be talking to Jean Grey. You should be talking to Hank McCoy. You should be talking to people with some science background or a knowledge of mutancy. You shouldn't be talking to a bloody S.H.I.E.L.D. agent. But again, I think I mentioned this in relation to the previous issue of the run, where we had our like cyberpunk character who had his consciousness in a flyer. Was he just called Night Flyer?
That's who I was thinking of, who died and then came back to life and then died again.
And I drew the comparison between him and the Grant Morrison character Phantom X, who appeared in New X-Men. Similar idea here again. Phantom X was a mutant, and he happened to manifest a secondary brain in a flying ship, but was also organically connected to him. There was a relationship between the two of them. He was able to exchange his brain around a couple of different bodies, and I see another possible inspiration of that character here. Same again. This creature is exchanging its consciousness between these bodies. So Kirby was coming up with these ideas, and they then once again get later refined or reused in a more palatable way after the times have moved on somewhat.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting thing to me about this issue is that, I mean, even though he was the first to draw Magneto and the X-Men, you kind of associate them more with other creators. And so you see Magneto here, and it's a much more Kirby-type story than we're used to seeing him in, with this concept of the one mind and 2 bodies. It feels like a lot of the weird concepts we've seen in the other work we've talked about. So Magneto is looking at Mr. 1 in the box and says, incredible, fantastic, I've got him at last, the smallest man in the world. Inch high private eye. No. Mr. 1, I'd have attacked the Pentagon itself to get you, little chap. And he doesn't understand why Mr. 1 doesn't move or communicate with him, and he thinks that Mr. 1's holding out on him and threatens him with a lit candle, which, when you're 1 inch high, that's a pretty scary threat. But then Peeper walks in again. Magneto, the others have returned from their mission. They want to make a full report on their collision with Captain America and that Goliath mutant. Magneto says, "The fools can wait. Tell them to stand by until I'm ready to see them." But they all barge in, and they want to know what's going on because they don't know what Magneto was stealing while they were distracting Cap. So he pulls out the tiny spaceship, and does this story ever explain where he got the tiny spaceship? I don't
know.
So.
And I do wonder if, because Joe found Mr. 1 and Mr. 2 on the road, and they just took them in. Okay. Magneto's found a tiny spaceship. Everyone's working on the assumption that Mr. 1's a mutant. Mm-hmm. And what if, in fact, he's an alien? These are his vehicles.
Yeah, I mean, I did feel like, since there was no explanation, I kind of felt like, well, maybe this is Mr. 1's craft, although obviously Mr. 2 wouldn't fit in there. But, yeah, or maybe you could piece it together that maybe Mr. 1 arrived on Earth in that, and then some scientists got a hold of him and set up the 2-body thing after he arrived. And then he escaped or something, and then they were on the road, and then Joe found them.
It just seems more probable that there is actually a relationship between him and the craft than for it to be this coincidence. On the other side of the coin, it could just be a massive coincidence.
Right, and the story doesn't explain it. So the Brotherhood here are shocked that that's all Magneto was after, was this, what looks like a toy to them. But Magneto says, "Behold, you mental midgets, a spaceship from the stars. It's small, but it's real, an actual visitor from some distant galaxy. But it resists all efforts to penetrate its interior. Not even X-rays will enter its hull. That's why our little man is here, to do that very job." And we get close-ups here of Mr. 1, who first looks kind of scared, and then his kind of shuts down, and the caption tells us that his mind is leaving his body, so to go to Mr. 2, which it doesn't tell us yet, but it says the eyes begin to close as the mind leaves the body, for there is another body to flee to in time of danger, a larger, immensely stronger form. And then we see Mr. 2 again in a cell yelling to get out. And of course, S.H.I.E.L.D's got him captured again. And then Cap comes in. It's happened. I expected it to happen. Another guy says, "What on earth are you getting at?" Cap says, "There is no Mr. 1 and 2, just a single mind which hops from brain to brain in 2 distinct bodies." Mr. 2 says, "You're right. Now let me out." So
I do love there's a sort of suggestion of frustration in that dialogue. "Yeah, you're right. Now let me out." "You're very smart. Open the door."
And Mr. 2 knows where he knows where Magneto is because his mind has been at Magneto's hideout in Mr. 1, which Cap understands. And so Mr. 2 is let out of the cell, and Mr. 2 says, "If anything happens to my other form, I won't last long in this one. One cannot exist without the other." And Cap says, "Great Scott, you are in danger." And S.H.I.E.L.D. is willing to send guys with them to Magneto's, but Mr. 2 says, "Don't send any squads or platoons or companies. The Magneto's people would be warned by the approach. I must go alone." But of course, Cap goes with him because it's a Captain America comic. This is where Cap thinks, "If only I'd been able to reach Xavier last week, I'd feel a lot better about facing Magneto with the X-Men by my side."
Yes, Cap, it would have been a better idea all around. I do love the dialogue here from Mr. Two, sure, deal yourself in. So he's got colloquialisms going now.
And then this is where we see Peeper using his power to see Cap and Mr. Two in some kind of craft coming towards them. The caption says, the mutant's power of vision enjoys a range of hundreds of miles. Like a natural telescope, it can define detail denied to ordinary humans. That is why Cap and his companion are spotted on their way to stop Magneto's mutants. So then Peeper runs down to tell Magneto that they're on their way. And Magneto is putting Mr. One, who is unconscious, into the spaceship, just with tweezers. And then Mr. Two crashes through the wall and a fight starts. And that goes on for a few pages. And Burner throws flame at Mr. Two, who says, "This heat, it won't stop me." So Cap punches out Burner, and then they find Mr. Two smoking and unconscious, and Cap says he doesn't seem harmed by the heat, and yet he misjudged his own body resistance. It withstood the heat by closing its pores. He suffocated internally. I'm not sure how Cap knows that, but anyway, Mr. Two is done for. But the fight continues between Cap and the mutants.
This where Peeper uses his laser eyes, which is,
Yeah, it doesn't just see with those eyes. He's got Scott Summers powers, too.
I can suddenly see a Marvel, what are they called? The Marvel Encyclopedia, where you had all the character bios. I can see a whole new column opening up on that page for Peeper. Also, his vision gives him intense laser vision, which he can create force blasts,
Yeah.
He is now a level 2 threat.
And Cap throws him down what appears to be a laundry chute or something. And Peeper says, "You'll pay for this."
And this is why I assumed he was the only one who survived.
Yeah.
Because he was explicitly shown to be sent away.
Mm-hmm. Down to the basement. And Cap says, "I hope the basement is cold and damp. Give my regards to the other rats when you hit bottom." Meanwhile, Magneto is working feverishly, we're told, to ferret out the secrets of the tiny spaceship. And he's found a way to see what's going on inside, and sees Mr. One now actually like walking around in there, not just lying there. Magneto assumes that threatening him with the candle is why Mr. One is now actively helping him. "Do your job, microbe. Get me all the power of the stars." And then Cap breaks down the door, and they have a bit of a fight. Magneto spins Cap around. A little spin should take the fight out of you. Not sure what he's doing there. So magnetic whirlwind, we're told. So I'm not sure how a magnetic whirlwind works.
Well, he's doing the thing I said he should have done in the first fight, which is he's using the shield to spin him around, because Cap is always holding onto the shield. So you can just do that. You can spin that around, and Cap's holding onto it. And we see Cap grab onto something to resist the spin, and then, that sort of pulls him out of what he calls that mad maelstrom. But from the jump, you hear Captain America is going to a fight with Magneto. You go, oh, well, so Cap lost. So he's dead? When's the funeral? It's not likely he succeeded. But he manages to interrupt this, and then Magneto resorts to throwing daggers at him.
Yeah, as Cap is lying on the floor, these 3 daggers land in front of his face, and Cap's eyes are open wide in that panel with the plock, plock, plock of the daggers. But then Cap rolls over and kicks Magneto, knocking him over. And then the other mutants come in. They all want to get back at Cap for defeating them in the first fight. And then we see Mr. 1 in the spacecraft, and he realizes that Mr. 2 is done for, and so he's only got moments left to live, and he wants vengeance on his killers. And there is a self-destruct mechanism in the spaceship. Okay, so does he know that because it's his? I mean, it does say the blast symbol is the same in any language, so it leaves open the possibility that he just recognizes what that is because of the explosion symbol on it.
So the debate we're left with here is, it's the same in any language. You too, reader, can understand what this panel is depicting, right? That's one interpretation. Or, he is actually a mutant. His other self died, and he now recognizes how to create a self-destruct sequence in this alien device, which is what, a surface read of the description, that's what it would lead you to believe. He is actually a mutant. This was an alien spaceship. He's just figured out what the panel marked boom does.
Yeah. Right.
A very technical instruction.
So Magneto notices that the spaceship looks like it's going to explode. It's glowing. And so Magneto gets his own butt out of there, doesn't try to help anybody else. It just kind of disappears into the floor. And the bomb explodes, and Cap is knocked down a shaft. And we don't see what happened to the other mutants who were standing there. Of course, Peeper's in the basement, but we see 3 of them just before it explodes. Who's missing there? Lifter is missing. But presumably he's out of the panel, but in the same room.
Again, the text says, this is why I was so insistent at the beginning. The text says, when Cap regains his senses, he realizes that the incident is over. The mutants, the house, everything above him is gone. Now, it could just be they escaped.
Yeah.
Also, somehow, which is, I guess, what we've been led to believe. But I would read that on its face and go, everyone's dead. Except for Magneto, who we saw get away, and Peeper, who got sent down the launcher shaft.
Yeah.
Everyone else is dead.
But at any rate, they're in one way or another gone. And so Cap just leaves, and then we see the end. It's kind of an abrupt ending to the story.
Yeah. Everyone's dead, Dave.
But yeah, it's, I hadn't thought of it before we started talking about it. But yeah, maybe the most interesting thing about this is that he leaves some things open to interpretation. Is Mr. 1 connected to that spaceship, or does he just happen to be the right size to fit in it? We don't get any explanation either way. So yeah, that's interesting. Also, this digital edition of the Swine trade paperback has a bio of Kirby in the back, and several pages. It goes on about his creating Cap with Joe Simon. There's like 3 pages of that with a few illustrations, and a list of like all of Kirby's Marvel stuff with issue numbers and everything.
Waxy Buildup, a podcast covering the earliest recordings from the wax cylinders of the 1880s to the discs of the 1920s, plus the latest recordings to enter the pop chart 100 years ago this week. Heard exclusively at ftmelo.podbean.com.
Tuesdays on the Radio Troller Entertainment Podcast channel.
To delight those who would have melody or be amused.
Okay, so we've been reading these 50-year-old comics throughout this year of Kirby's Captain America. How have you felt about these overall? Was it good, bad, good and bad? So?
I mean, it starts, this is Kirby's return to Captain America and his return to Marvel. And we start the proceedings with the Mad Bomb storyline.
Right, that we talked about a couple years ago, yeah.
Yeah, it's an amazing story, and it's the one that people still cite to this day as one of the great Captain America. So he starts on, that's where he starts from.
Right. Yeah, that was one of the best ones of the bunch.
Yeah, and again, it is the idea of we're going to get into politics. We're going to actually deal with the America's relationship with fascism from the jump. This is a guy who actually was personally threatened by the German-American Bund. Nazis turned up at the comic book publisher offices looking for Kirby. And in the story goes, he still was, all right, I went down to meet them because he's like, I will kill a fool. So, this is where we started. I really, really liked the Night People storyline. We talked about that. It was a fascinating idea. Again, another concept, the idea of Captain America intersecting with a pocket dimension that has been reused by other writers. Rick Remender, I believe I cited in that review, took liberal use of that sort of concept. The trip down to South America, we had a contemporary Marvel comic which seemed to be actually challenging some of the anti-communist fascist movements in South America, which were, his own country was sort of turning a blind eye to. We name-checked Pinochet in that discussion, I remember. Again, this is what I'm talking about. This stuff rises through his interest in what's going on in the world. But Baron Zemo and his use of Jewish mysticism to create this sort of shape-shifting creature, loosely based on the Golem. I think I went down a little bit of a rabbit hole in that one when we talked about it. And
or
it never...
You're talking about not Zemo.
Anyway, you know the one I'm referring to, the biofanatic.
The guy with
Arnim
the
Zola.
Arnim Zola. There we go. Yeah. With the TV in his chest. Yeah.
Yes, that chap. Anyway, that one, I was talking about that sent me down a bit of a rabbit hole into the connections between the Golem myth and the Frankenstein's monster. It never occurred to me until after the fact. And I think this is the concept that maybe underpins a lot of Jack Kirby's Captain America writing, and also the connection with the superhero idea, in particular the Ubermensch, the Superman, that Captain America himself is a golem. Captain America is a figure styled after the Aryan ideal. He's this tall, muscular, blonde, blue-eyed, intensely patriotic figure, which seems to be the obverse of Nazi propaganda. When we look at Nazi propaganda, we see these blonde men fighting in the front lines for the Third Reich. That was the image that so terrified people around the world and people in Germany who were being victimized. And Kirby takes that image, which again is informed by the Ubermensch, which Friedrich Nietzsche's sister did some quick editing on, so it became more applicable to the Nazi propaganda. You take that image, and then Kirby flips it, and he makes him an anti-fascist. He makes him somebody who stands up for Judaism and Christianity and people around the world and the minorities and different groups, and he sends him into conflict with Hitler. And he actually says, no, I'm going to fight Hitler with the thing Hitler dreams of being. And that is an intensely interesting idea. That is the sort of imagery that I'm coming to when now, having read through this later run on the character by Kirby, but also you think about it at the time of the original creation, Simon and Kirby, when they came up with Captain America, that's a really interesting response to that moment in time, to the actual war effort and the images that were being circulated. So, I'm once again grateful to you for creating this opportunity for us to talk about these, because I got more and more excited the more I read.
Oh.
Because I suddenly realized, oh, he's thinking about all of these things, and he's bringing them in in a very articulate way and a very entertaining way, and I think that's what makes him the king.
Yeah. Although as I looked back over these last 2 volumes, some of it I read, some of it I just kind of skimmed, and I felt like, so he's very progressive in some of the things that happen in the story, but then at the same time, some characters are so stereotypical and things that, read really regressive nowadays. Like, the way Sam talks sometimes, the way some of the women talk. And so, you're taking maybe the larger point of the story well, but then it kind of gets undermined by some of the racial and gender politics that probably seemed fine 50 years ago to most readers. But, you couldn't do it the same way now.
Yeah, and I think it's important that we say those things. It's important that he be held accountable to that, because too often we say, oh, well, it was the time. And when I never really accepted that, because I was like, no, if you're going to look out at the world, you can see the way things are, you can speak out against it. That was never not the case. It really started bothering me when I started hearing, oh, well, it was the 80s. Oh, well, it was the 90s. And I was like, wait, I lived through that.
Yeah,
we knew that was wrong.
Things were more progressive by then, yeah. But yeah, it doesn't maybe seem like to people who weren't around yet at the time. But
I was going, yeah, it was the 80s, and that dickhead was wrong. Don't give them an excuse.
But I mean, yeah, there were plenty of people who didn't like Reagan. Not enough to make him lose an election, but
twice. For God's sake, twice. The man's brains were leaking out of his ears, and you elected him twice.
Yeah, first time over Carter, who became the greatest ex-president in history.
I mean, like, what's the line that Reagan became president because he needed a gig? It's just like he felt like, oh yeah, I can do that, and he was an actor, so he was able to say these gross, unpalatable, horrific things. People are like, oh, I remember him. He used to be on the General Electric Radio Hour or whatever it was called back in the day, and he used to tell me how to vote against unions and
right. Well, yeah, I suppose Reagan got as much help from his Hollywood career as Trump did from being on The Apprentice.
It's very similar art.
And yeah, made enough people feel comfortable with him to vote for him for president. But anyway, we're getting way off topic.
we certainly are. But I think, it does serve, it would be maybe interesting to dip into the Grunwald era and some of the 80s Cap comics just to see how they're handling the Reagan era, because that was the great freeze on American progressiveness was Reagan. Like it sort of completely reversed course in terms of any sort of political discourse. And to be a leftist was basically you're now a Stalinist killer of the worst stripe. And it was, no, I just want to tax people more money who can afford it and want that money to go into public services. Oh, you're a Stalinist.
But as we've already kind of referred to here, I mean, Kirby throughout his second Marvel run, as well as the first one, of course, is just like keeps creating characters that other creators want to use. In these last couple volumes, we saw Abner Doolittle with the Night People, who I know reappears later. And of course, Arnim Zola has been a major Cap villain ever since. So yeah, it's just, he comes up with ideas that appeal to other creators. They want to play with those toys after Kirby.
Yeah, and he at the time he didn't really get the kudos for that, but I think people were making a note and go, "Oh, I'm going to use that one. I'm going to use that one."
Yeah. It's also interesting. I mean, we kind of talked about it, but the arc of Sharon in these two volumes, where she goes from complaining about Cap, always running off on missions, and why doesn't he quit this dangerous job and marry her? And then we go from that to, oh, now Sharon's doing missions, and she never stopped after that.
Yeah, and we also have that unfortunate episode where Red Skull was an accidental feminist because it turns out S.H.I.E.L.D. are so misogynist. Red Skull looks good by contrast. You talk about the gender perspectives were regressive. True, but I think he was aware enough to make that point. Like her contact at S.H.I.E.L.D. was like, oh yeah, I'm a misogynist and proud of it, isn't it? Or chauvinist? You say I'm a chauvinist and proud of it?
Maybe, yeah.
There was an awareness that it was a shitty situation, but perhaps Kirby was like, I'm not a woman. I can't really speak to their experience, but I certainly know that there are men out there who are fully aware of the impact of sexism on women, and they don't care.
Yeah.
And then Red Skull turns up. He's like, actually, you should. I need to rewrite some fascist principles to include more women in the armed forces.
Yeah, and you kind of get that feeling too when Kirby tries to comment on like African Americans or American Indians or something, and it's like his heart's in the right place, but it just feels a little icky at the same time. It's like he's not quite approaching it the right way, and maybe he can't as a white Jewish guy from New York City. It just doesn't quite work. I don't know, for me anyway.
I mean, we still have that today. Like, there still is, because ultimately the IP trumps any kind of progressive statement you're trying to make with this property. So I think we talked about there's a comic book coming out at the moment which a lot of people are celebrating as being very politically forward-thinking for a Marvel superhero comic, which is The Ultimates. And the version of Hawkeye that's presented in this comic is an Indigenous American who has this tribal identity and speaks to the experience of genocide and speaks to the America that he knows ignores all of this in its sort of central myth. But then Captain America will turn around and go, yeah, but come on, join me. Says, oh, okay. and like, I think we had a conversation about that, and you said, well, what do you want them to do? And I said, I want Captain America to be wrong. That's what I want. I want him to go, no, piss off. And like, he does his own thing and succeeds, but that can't happen because the central character is still a heroic white man and has to be right, like has to be correct. Yeah. So there is still maybe a lot of work to be done here, because ultimately we're still trading in ideas that are 70 years old, 60 years old, older, keeping them in circulation. So with that, you have to take on the baggage, the cultural baggage, all those properties.
Yeah, and then we get into the whole topic of like, I think it's kind of died down now, but there was this iteration where it was all like younger, more diverse versions of the standard Marvel heroes, and a lot of people didn't enjoy that either. And why do we have two Caps? And I'm not sure that was the answer. I guess they figure it's easier than introducing like brand new heroes that nobody's ever heard of and trying to make them popular. So I'm not sure if there's a way to win on that count. to make the heroes more diverse and have them be as popular as the existing ones.
It's the unintentional impact of intellectual property.
Mm-hmm.
You have to keep the same concept in circulation.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot introduce a new concept because then you lose the old one and you lose that audience, and you need to take a risk. No one wants to take a risk. Everything is safe.
Mm-hmm.
We have a new Avengers movie coming out, which is basically reversing the conclusions of all the previous Avengers movies because they tried something different and they didn't do it well, and now they're panicking and they're retreating back to what they think will do well.
Yeah,
which you think
Robert Downey Jr. and
yes, let's just draw a line under this. It's not going to work because you're trying to recreate something which had some organic appeal at the time of release, and now you're trying to artificially regenerate that. It's not going to work.
Yeah. Well, on the other hand, Muslim teenage Ms. Marvel, I think, worked pretty well and got some popularity.
I mean, it was a good show.
Yeah, I'm talking about the comics too.
Yeah. But these clickbait would-be right-wing activists are very quick to point out that it wasn't as successful as people expected it to be. And that's sort of the millstone that's around that show's neck. And then the Marvels also didn't commercially do as well because, I mean, ultimately these properties then were released after all of the previous attempts started sputtering out. It's not like
Eternals.
Diversity isn't going to like make something better. As an added element, there needs to be a grounding in good storytelling.
Yeah,
you simply don't throw in this box ticking exercise, and that's where the internet racists. It's like Great Skull of Feminism. They kind of have a point because it is a commercial enterprise that's not actually interested in engaging with the risk of telling stories from other points of view. So these characters are diverse in that they are sort of airlifted into the established plot machinery that they've already set up. And then they're meant to do as well, if not better.
Right.
No, you need to start from scratch.
So yeah, let's throw in a black guy and a Chinese woman, and now it's perfect. And then we want a transgender person, and now it's all fixed.
It's tokenism, and it's really unfortunate because I think when you're casting actors and when you're casting filmmakers and you're casting writers who come from these backgrounds, and they're very excited to do these properties, going, great, I get to tell the story of this character. I really looked up to this character. Now I get to do this. And then you put you put limitation, and then what they produce is something that is meant to appeal to everyone. What's the exception to this? Black Panther, because that was something which, I mean, it did mind its P's and Q's, but it was so directly focused on the experience of a black audience going to see it that it was thrilling, and that was infectious, and other people going to see it got swept up in the.
And it was organically.
Yes.
A Marvel character. They didn't have to change the race of the person or something. He was already a minority from an American point of view, and existed in the comics since the 60s. And so, I think it worked for everybody.
And listeners, that's a tease because we'll be talking about Jack Kirby's Black Panther.
Yeah. Yes. That's what we'll get to next. But actually, I think what I would like to do before we get into the 70s stuff is talk about his first appearance in Fantastic Four.
Yes, no, it's an amazing story. Yeah.
Yeah. So in the new year it'll be Black Panther. I'm not sure how much, maybe the whole year. I'm not sure how long it takes, how many issues there are, or how quickly we'll go through them. But anyway, that's what we'll start out 2026 with on the Tim and Emmet episodes. Anything else to say about this run of Cap?
Oh, so much. But I'm taking pity on the poor listeners. I think I've said my piece.
Right. Well, yeah, we're way over an hour, and actually I need to go anyway. So,
Yes.
yeah. That's our talk about Cap. So it was overall interesting, good in many places, a little eye-rolly in some others, but...
It's Kirby. Hey, that's what happens. Sometimes he hits, sometimes he misses. But, when he hits, he really hits.
Yeah. Captain America and the Falcon, The Swine, is published by Marvel. Follow us on Blue Sky at Decon Comics. Join our Facebook page or the more active group. Listen to our audio-only videos on YouTube. All of those are linked from deconstructingcomics.com. You can communicate with us via any of those sites or drop us a line at mail@deconstructingcomics.com or talk to us. Click the Leave a Voicemail link on the left sidebar of our site. Are you making a comic? Send it to us and we'll do a Critiquing Comics episode about it. Our theme is by J.B. Anderton. The music backing the promotion of our Patreon is Change by Jazar. From Jack Kirby Comics, we're going a completely different direction next week. Ed Sabitsky did a lot of cartooning for National Lampoon back in the 70s and 80s. Much of his work revolves around comics done under certain conditions or showing a certain situation. For example, fortune-telling comics, dull comics, or poor reception comics. Neither Kumar nor I were familiar with his work until we picked up the collection Poor Helpless Comics, the cartoons and more of Ed Sabitsky. But now we've read it and we'll talk about it next week. Till then, this is Tim, and thanks for listening to Deconstructing Comics.